Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, this week marks 50 years since that major decision of Roe v. Wade. Now that decision has been overturned by the Supreme Court as of last year, there are still going to be anti-abortion advocates that are going to be marching all throughout the weekend and in the nation's capital to protest how things have changed. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, there's one school district that is looking to change the conversation around critical race theory, and they are now going to train teachers on American patriotism. We're going to discuss the issue of that. And then, do you need a permission slip to learn the Star-Spangled Banner? Well, apparently, the case is for the Black National Anthem. Some students in Florida will need permission slip. What's the implication of that situation? And then we're going to be checking in with an interview with the mayor of Broadville, Illinois, to talk about how small towns are on the front lines for big change. So stay with us. We got all of that and a whole lot more in today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to get to, so let's jump right in. Today, my culture crew will be Corinna Denise, one of our online culture crew members. She's going to be joining us in a few moments. And then later on, we're going to be checking in with my brother, Rashad Staten. But let's jump right in and talk to Corinna, as on this Friday. And it's always good to talk to her. Corinna, good afternoon. How you feeling, sis?
Hey, happy Friday, Farajii. Peace, culture.
Happy Friday. How you feeling? You good?
I'm good. I took a mental break this week from the news. So
oh,
very intentional about that, and it was kind of hard because I want to know what's going on. So I did dip in a little bit, but I think I needed a rest to regroup.
Well, I'm glad that you decided to break with us. To break from your break with us.
Yes.
Always glad to have you on the show. Corinna, let's jump right into it because we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, 50 years ago, there was of course, a major decision that came down from the Supreme Court. Since 1973, states all across the country and citizens had pretty much applauded the progression of women reproductive rights in the space of abortion and how that was deemed to be legal. Now that has changed 50 years later. Last year, of course, we know that the Supreme Court has ruled that it was illegal, and that states essentially can decide on their own how they can move forward with the mandate. And of course, that created an uproar before the national elections. And this weekend, this will be the first weekend in 50 years since Roe v. Wade has been overturned. So this is a very, very historic weekend for anti-abortion activists, for women's rights activists, and women's reproductive rights activists. So what's your take on this as we look at, beyond Roe? Because that's going to be one of the themes for the big gathering in Washington, D.C. this weekend. How do you think that this country is going to move forward, considering we're in this new space when it comes to women reproductive rights?
I mean, it all depends on us, right? The voting bloc. We have to decide how we're going to move forward, if we're going to tolerate this or if we're going to do something about it. So I think these next 2 years, we really need to arm ourselves with knowledge. I think there are still some women who aren't even privy to this, that this has happened, that this is what we have to look going forward. And it's really, really dangerous. It's our health, it's our reproductive rights. And, I don't want to argue about whether or not abortion is the right or wrong thing to do. That's not the argument. But the argument is, does the government have the right to tell us, what to do with our bodies? And a lot of it has to do with health. So this is very dangerous. I hope there's a massive turnout this weekend, and that they carry on their protests as they normally would. I mean, and in the past, it has been a celebration, right? But now it's going to look, I anticipate, much different. And I hope women continue to rally and advocate for essentially what's our human right. It's population control. It's just control in general. And, that white fear, they know that come later on, eventually they're going to be outnumbered and they're going to be the minority in this country. So it's still, it does make me angry, because there's so many intricate details that go along with it. No one wants to actually make that decision. But sometimes, for example, women could have an ectopic pregnancy, or, a plethora of things could go wrong. And essentially abortion means to end a pregnancy, to terminate. So this is really, really dangerous. Right now, women aren't getting the care that they need. I've seen and heard so many stories where, they're being rushed to the hospital, let's say the middle of the night, you're dying. And before your doctor even takes the time to say, I'm going to save your life, they're consulting with their attorney. Like, it's insane. You know what I mean? So, while you're bleeding out, and this is extremely, extremely dangerous. Last summer, I was at a birthday brunch with some friends of mine, and the topic kind of came up, but not in the sense that we're speaking Farajii. It was kind of just casual about, having kids, not having kids. And one of the women I was with, she just says, well, just have an abortion. And in that moment, I was thinking like, can you? Because, Roe was just overturned. And because of where I was at the time, and it was a birthday, I didn't want to necessarily ruin the mood. I'm like, maybe this might not be the time to touch on it. But it just stood out to me, it just stood out to me that, are you aware that Roe was just overturned? Are you aware that, Florida is about to implement a 15-week ban? That was the first thing that the Florida legislature down here opened up with. And it varies from state to state. And, we're on the verge of, oh my goodness, is this going to become law of the entire country? So It's very, very dangerous. And it's going to be somewhat of a somber weekend. What's usually a celebration of our rights has become the reverse. Now we're going to have to protest to get those rights back.
And you know what, Corinna, a lot of folks are experiencing the same amount of mixed emotion that you just expressed, that it's going to be a somber weekend, which could be, and I mean, in the community organizing space, pain is the fuel for power. And so it could be a weekend where you're like, damn, this is messed up. We're turning back the clock. Or it could be like, damn, this is just what we need to show that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It depends on the person to determine how they're going to use this setback for a major comeback, as they say. But I want to get a couple of comments from our online culture crew, folks. I want you to join us in the conversations. We're talking about 50 years of Roe, and this being the first weekend. This is the first time after that historic overturning of that decision that folks are going to be gathering all across the country, starting as early as this week. As early as today, all the way through Sunday. There are going to be protests and gatherings happening across the country. The big one, of course, leading up on Sunday in Washington, D.C. Tiana, you checked in and said, look, every woman deserves the right to health care. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting, Tiana and Corinna, that there are still women out there who don't know what is happening. There are still women out there who don't understand the significance of it. How do we have a conversation with those women, especially young Black women, right? That may think that, okay, I live in I had a situationship, and then, this happened, so therefore I can just get an abortion. So how do we make sure that they understand that their decisions that one decision can lead to another major decision? How do we get to that point?
I think we need to go back to the basics, right? Like general places that we gather. I'm just going to throw it out there. The church, youth groups, community organizations, maybe like after school programs for kids. I know that's going to be a really fine line, but where do we usually gather, right? We need to have those conversations around dinner with our families and friends. And, going forward, I guess sometimes we will have to just interrupt the birthday brunch and just call it for what it is, because it's that important, right? So I think we need to find common communal spaces and just, have a sensitive approach and say, hey, did you know? Are you aware? And why it's important? Why am I bringing this to your attention? Because it's dangerous to women and our lives are on the line. And this, again, Roe was just the entry point for the Supreme Court, the entry point to enumerated rights. So that's just the beginning. They're whipping up a whole bunch of stuff right now in SCOTUS, and they're ready to hand some stuff off to us. And so, like I said, we need to arm ourselves with knowledge, and we have to be uncomfortable, be comfortable with being uncomfortable sometimes, right? Because sometimes we don't always want to have those conversations, but it's imperative that we do. So we're going to find ourselves feeling that discomfort sometimes, but oh, well, if it's for the greater good, then that's what we have to do. No.
Absolutely. Edna Edwards, you posted this. You said no one has the right to tell any one woman what they can do with their body. Absolutely. I think women, y'all are more than capable and brilliant enough to try to figure it out. And for those women who don't know what to do with their bodies, that's why you have sisters, that you can lean on, women that are around you, that you can lean on your doctor. And I think that's the part, that women understand their power. Y'all have power. When I talk to Nira, when I talk to my sisters, when I talk to any woman, just emphasize women have power in any relationship, in any situation. Women always have the power. And I think that's the other element, like the untold element of this whole conversation.
Yes.
That y'all have often been told year in and year out that you don't have power. You don't have power about what's going on with your bodies. You don't have power about your profession. You don't have the power about who you want to be, your identity, and how you want to express yourself. And I'm pushing back on that. I can't leave that resistance and revolution, but I can be an ally in that space with you to say, no, you have power. And then we just got to suck it up, deal with it, accommodate to it, adapt to it, however you want to say it. But we just got to move out the way and make space for women to make the decisions on their own. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue that conversation. But also, I wanted to have a conversation about what's going on and now there's an effort to combat the whole idea of critical race theory, where now some teachers are going to have to be taught American patriotism. What does that look like? What is the curriculum for that? We'll have that conversation with Coretta and with you. Stay with us. We're just getting started here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. All right, as we're talking about what's happening on the abortion front, now let's shift gears to talk about what's happening in the educational space and how one state is looking to combat against the idea of having conversations about the real history of this country with a different conversation where they're training teachers on quote unquote American patriotism. This is the situation in the state of Missouri. And take a look at this, folks. This is not in Florida. This is not in Texas. This is another state that is taking aim to fight against history. Here's what's been reported so far about the state of Missouri. They have proposed a bill. Check this out. The proposed bill in the state Senate would prohibit teachers from teaching that, quote, individuals of any race, ethnicity, color, or national origin are inherently superior or inferior, and that individuals, by virtue of their race, ethnicity, color, or national origin, bear collective guilt and are inherently responsible for actions committed in the past by others. Specifically, no school shall offer a course on critical race theory in kindergarten through 12th grade. The legislation also calls on the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to develop a training program to, quote, prepare teachers to teach the principles of American civics and patriotism. Teachers who complete the training would receive a one-time bonus of $3,000. Now, also, if passed, the bill would create a Bill of Rights for parents that would allow them access to their child's school curriculum, including reading materials. It would prohibit a school from requiring a non-disclosure agreement for a parent to review curricula and existing criminal charges against a teacher or school employee. Both Missouri State House and Senate are controlled by Republicans. We just wanted to make that known as well, too. You know what I mean, Corinna? Let's bring Corinna Denise back into the conversation. She is an educator as much as she's a part of the online culture crew. Corinna, this is not in Florida. You're in Florida. This ain't in Florida. This ain't in Texas. This ain't in Alabama, right? This is in Missouri. So we can say St. Louis. That this is going to affect Black folks in St. Louis. This is going to affect white students in St. Louis, right? This is another state that's fighting, and I call it the fight against history. Another state that's fighting against history. Now you add that you're going to teach, train teachers on American patriotism. Then here's the kicker, Corinna. Here's the kicker. I'll give you some money. I'm gonna give you a little bonus. I'm gonna fatten your pockets just a little bit, even though they said it's a one-time bonus. That bonus might come on your check, which is going to be taxed. So
of course.
And of course, you got to think about teacher fees and dues and all of that other stuff. So you might bring home $1,000 after all of that. But this is now there's an incentive to not teach history. There's an incentive to teach some course that they don't even have a curriculum for. What is this about?
You know, it just pisses me off. Quite frankly, as an educator, you know what, and Farajii, you mentioned all the cities that this is not in, but get ready, coming to a city near you, okay? Because this is
a whole state, Corona.
This is a coordinated activity, cross country, you name it. So I anticipate that coming to Florida soon. I mean, you see what DeSantis is doing, DeSatan, already with the AP course and whatnot. This is disgusting. In a way, you know what? Are we already learning American patriotism? Because I distinctly remember in 11th grade American history class learning that the Civil War was about state rights when I knew better. When it was about the wicked, evil business of slavery, the sin in this country called the United States of America. So it was one thing now that they want to remove what's not even being taught at the kindergarten through 12th grade level. And now we want to implement American patriotism. So what does that look like? You know, they really capitalized off of all of those angry white parents, particularly at the start of 2020, when most cities had to shut down, when we were in the height of COVID. You know, a lot of those parents were pissed off, Farajii, that what, my kid's school is closed. Like, what am I going to do? They were angry. And I can't remember the name of the guy specifically who kind of started this wildfire with the critical race theory, but you know, I got to give it to them. They're smart. They're pretty damn calculating. You know, how can we get those angry parents in their feelings? You know, oh, critical race theory, we're going to make something up. So as often as we hear people call it like a boogeyman, here's another boogeyman. Missouri's probably setting, you know, the foundation, another template for states to follow. Just like with Texas, they said it with gun laws. Here in Florida, you know, DeSatan is setting it with the quote unquote wokeness and whatnot. But yeah, as an educator, it really pisses me off. I wonder how many of those legislators have actually been teachers or administrators.
Probably none.
Yeah, it's really sensitive for me because
I'm being dead ass serious. I think probably maybe probably none.
Yeah,
like, I mean,
I'm confident that it's
or the wives. And I'm assuming, I'm gonna just tell y'all the reality. I think this is by men, for one. I think, unfortunately, this is by white men who are fighting so hard to keep certain things in place the way the things are. So this is not racism. This is what we have been seeing traditionally, because there's no way in the world that you would get, you know, a Black legislator, a Latino legislator, Native American, Asian American legislator to sign off on this. And this is because here's the other part about this. The other part is, if Black history can't be taught, then you can't teach about Native American, Latino American, or any other type of history of any other group of people. You can't teach
exactly. If it's one, it's
you
all.
Can't teach it. Because guess what? We're going to find in all of the histories of all of those people, the struggles of all of those people, it's still going to come down to white supremacy. That these folks were affected. Every group of people were affected by white supremacy. And so it is a slap in the face. It's just outright insulting that a piece of legislation can move forward in this. And I really hope that the teachers unions in Missouri really push back on this idea, man. I hope this is not like a mandate with, there's no way in the world that you should be able to pay people to not teach real, true history and to kind of go on the fly and say, well, we're going to teach about American patriotism. Oh, I didn't know there was a curriculum for that. Well, there is, and we're going to make one up as we go along.
And something else I'd like to raise a question to, Farajii, particularly like here in Florida, right? With all the things that have happened recently, Florida hasn't been blue in a very long time. So like these white folks, they need to use their common sense, but they're so, you know, entrenched in their whiteness, they can't see past anything else. You know, hello, you have had the majority for quite some time. So how is critical race theory all of a sudden a problem? And if it was a problem, why didn't you notice it before? Where's your involvement in your child's education? You don't see the curriculum or the syllabus or the homework that your child is bringing home, if supposedly that was the case, right? But we all know it's not. But it is insulting what these legislators are doing. And I'm highly sensitive about it as an educator, Farajii, because number one, you know, unless you have actually worked inside of a school, you know, the intricate details, what it takes to facilitate a class, manage a classroom, you know, take care of children, transitioning them into different spaces and the like, you have no idea, and you should not speak on anything when it comes to school matters, period. Because I'm pretty sure, I want to raise the question, how actively involved were these parents in their children's education, even these legislators, right, to know what they're bringing home prior to all this uproar that we've seen these past couple of years? How actively involved have they been? You know, and how long is this?
That's not. It's not even about them being actively involved. We know that look, you can't tell me that the educational system in this country is thriving, right? Because parents are actively involved. One of the big reasons why this educational system And I saw one list, and I think it was like U.S. News and World Report or something. Like, we are so far down the in terms of the best ranking, educational system in the world.
Yeah.
Because of lack of parent involvement. Because of a lack of parent, we do not have the mindset that we have about education is way different than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. Way different. It's changed dramatically, whether you're black or white. And, nowadays it's like, as long as my child has, quote unquote, like supervised child care, you know what I mean? It's becoming down to like, I'm working, I'm doing all, and I understand it because the pressures of life are real, but at the end of the day, you're not seeing it across the board. Some school districts may have a high parent turnout, parent involvement than others, but not to the point where it's making a huge difference in changing how America's educational system is currently viewed. Our educational system is lacking, not just in parent involvement, but because of stuff like this with content. Our children are coming out of these schools not knowing any history, both black and white children.
Yeah.
And there are educators like you, Nira, other folks that are doing your part, who are becoming, quote unquote, like rebels of the system, who are pushing back and saying, well, look, I know what the system is telling y'all, but when y'all in my classroom, you will learn this. There are some
speaks to Farajii. Sorry to interrupt you. I hope as a community, this will motivate us to recognize that, okay, now we have to make sure that we are educating our children as well, right? Because it all starts at home. We have to become more actively involved as parents, because of because it's our child's future, right? Most importantly, and, train up a child in the way they should go. But in addition to that, everything that they're trying to undo, everything that they're trying to hide, they're hiding in plain sight. They don't want us to know the true history. So I hope that parents, mentors, siblings, family members, friends, we have to take it upon ourselves to make sure that we are educating our children so that they know how to sort through all this context and convoluted misinformation when they are in the classroom. That's so important. And I hope we get more involved and take an initiative to, have these conversations at home, teach your child these things that you think might be missing in school, and to make sure whatever they did learn, have a conversation with them. Is it accurate? Is it incorrect? Is there some more that needs to be added to it? That's so important. We don't want to just take for granted we're sending them to school. We need to be actively involved. And I'm speaking specifically to Black people as a community. Let us make sure that we're taking the initiative to know what our kids are learning in these classrooms, in these spaces, and that we're educating them on the home front, first and foremost.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue to talk about what's happening in the state of Missouri. Again, folks, this is a nationwide educational crisis where states are fighting against history and are trying to implement other measures to keep our children from understanding who they really are, where this country comes from, and the future of this country is truly, truly at stake. We'll continue the conversations as we highlight your comments. So make sure you post your comments in our chat as we're streaming live on YouTube and, of course, on Facebook. And stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff.
So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, welcome back. We have been talking about the latest move in the fight against history, as the state of Missouri has decided to take up the mantle of now pushing back on this idea of quote unquote critical race theory, teaching the real history of America and the impact of white supremacy on this country and on its people. And so now the state of Missouri has put out a new bill, which state legislators have been discussing, would ban critical race theories in schools and offer teacher training in patriotism, American patriotism, a teaching training that they have no curriculum for. They don't even know what that means. They just came up with a name. They don't even have any curriculum for this teacher training. Along with this teacher training, they said, look, once we do make up a curriculum, if you take it, we'll give you a one-time bonus of $3,000. Wow. We've been talking to Online Culture crew member and educator Corinna Denise about this whole situation. This thing is nationwide. Now, here's my concern, Corinna. Let's bring you back into the frame. Here's my concern. My concern is that we know what's happening in Florida. We know what's happening in Texas. Now it's happening in Missouri. Now that we're seeing this price tag being attached to the curriculum, that it's going to compel other states to say, hey, other Republican-led states, and there are still a lot of them in the country, folks. It's not all Democrats. And these other Republican-led states that say, hey, that might be the move. Instead of, hey, you come to our state, let's go to the state of Indiana. Former Vice President Mike Pence is from the state of Indiana. Imagine in Indiana, they say, oh, we can offer you $5,000. If you come to the state of Indiana and you become an educator and you don't teach CRT and you teach American patriotism, we'll offer you $5,000, $6,000. And during a time of an inflation, during a time where people are making sure that they hold on to quote unquote stable jobs. See, this is why this whole conversation gets almost to the point of being just very manipulative, because you're going to play off of the needs of the people, right, for your own benefit and for your own gain. You're going to exploit somebody's need to earn a little extra money, exploit somebody's need for job security, so you can have some political benefit, make some political gain in order for you to teach something or not teach something, so to keep you in a state of power. Mm-hmm. It's very, very just deceptive and manipulative.
And never mind the fact that teachers are already the unsung heroes, right? Highly underpaid. But now, because you want me to teach your white racist curriculum that is incorrect, this patriotism, you're willing to give me an incentive. So to control people with fear, and then I'm going to throw some money at you so you can help to carry on and implement the fear, so that our evil, wicked agenda can carry out as we designed it to be. It's just everyone's just following, a landscape per se, Farajii, like here in Florida when DeSatan, offered an incentive to NYPD police officers. Hey, move down here. I'm going to give you $5,000 since you're not being treated right. I think we're going to see more of this where they're going to be willing. That's when they're willing to throw out the money, right? so that everything kind of just fits according to plan. But never mind the fact that we need so many different resources in schools. You know, some students are sharing books. You only have a class set. But this curriculum now takes precedent. And like you said, they haven't even written it. Like, I would love to see it. And then, you know what makes the people who actually design this training or curriculum, what makes them qualified? Do you have a certain qualification of that too? You know, since we're going to just take away, you know, Black studies, African American studies, you know, and, you know, a lot of these diversity and inclusion offices, I see that that's going to probably be on the verge of phasing out as well. Are we going to be qualified to design or teach these trainings or create these trainings, Farajii? Like, I feel like as an educator, like all those questions are just popping up in my head. Like, what does this look like going forward?
Great questions. Great question. And here's what I think, and I'm going to highlight some of our online culture crew comments in a moment. But here's what I think, Corinna. This is going to create the opposite effect of what these states had in mind. It's human nature. It's like if you tell a child not to do something, guess what they're going to do? Don't touch that jar. Well, what's in the jar?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, if you're telling people that they should not learn history, then the child in all of us is going to ask, well, why? I wonder why they tell us not to learn this history. Black children, white children, Latino children, why don't they want us to learn this history? Now, what you're doing is you're generating even more of a desire because nobody likes to know what to do. I mean, come on. I mean, when it comes to certain things, right? And if a Black child said, well, mommy, they don't want you to learn our history. Mommy, they told us that it's not important. Well, why did they say that? Now it's going to flick. I think the opposite effect is going to happen. You're going to have parents that are going to be pushing it. Parents that weren't, quote unquote, Black conscious, parents that weren't involved. Now they're going to start to get involved. Parents that never thought about Black history, white parents are going to say, I wonder why they don't want to teach them. And I'm talking about forward-thinking white parents who say, you know what? I want my child to learn about other people. It's going to create, you're going to generate, and you're going to fuel a revolution in this country in pushing back against this. I'm telling you,
I really hope so.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen because guess what? We in this country, we are tired of being lied to, Corinna. And we also know that this country has omitted so much stuff. It just doesn't feed the soul when we hear politicians dictating what's good and what's not good for us. And we see the madness that they're going through. It's going to create, I think it's going to in part create an opposite effect. Yes, some parents are going to be like, yes, we're not going to do this. But one of the things I've learned as a parent is that you can't protect your child from every single thing that they in the world. You're not with your child 24/7, especially when they get to the school age, right? You won't be able to do it. Your child is going to be exposed. And the winds of change are being whipped up in this country where, guess what? The truth is going to come out regardless of our little attempts of political policy making, regardless of our attempts of cultural shifting. The truth is going to come out because guess what? This is the time of truth that we're living in right now. That's the moment that we're in. We cannot continue to omit or just blatantly lie in this time and expect there not to be some sort of backlash. The truth is going to be told in this country right now. All right,
and to your point, Farajii, real quick,
I'm
not a parent yet, but as an educator for like 15 years now, I've learned that with children, especially when it comes to parents, you are not your child's only influence. And I think that's important to remember, especially in this moment that we're in now. We have to be vigilant and make sure we're having those conversations with our kids. You know, what are they discussing? What are they learning? You know, we have to keep sight of that, especially with all of these crazy changes they want to make. That is not for our greater good.
Absolutely. Real Brooklyn, you checked in, my guy. You said, strange how my generation had a lot less to work with and still function. This new generation has way more, but can't get it right. Just saying. We function. They're going to revolutionize. Real Brooklyn, we function, right? We grew up on all that madness. Look, we function. Now it's getting to the point where this generation is going to either go hard or they're going to go home. This generation is going to revolutionize. We kind of had to deal with it.
Yeah.
We went along to go along. This generation is going to have to make the conscious decision to whether they're going to accept the truth or they're just not going to accept the truth. That's one of the big things. Appreciate you, bro. Nicole, you said students are not going to learn about Mansa Musa, Malcolm X, the Black Panther Party, Jimmy Lee Jackson, etc. in school. Guess what? Guess what? That's the time where the cultural community steps up, Nicole. You know what I mean? That's the time where parents and community members and activists, we step up. That's
and may I add to that, Farajii? Hey, sis, Nicole, yeah, I didn't learn about Mansa Musa until I was an adult. And that really pissed me off, to be quite frank. It's just like, why am I not learning about all these great people in grade school, right? Those primary years. It just drives me insane to think like all of this has been intentional and being hidden. So that's why I go back to, at home. And again, I hope, Farajii, that this is the motivation for us to get curious and to drive us to figure out, well, why don't you want me to know that? How come you don't want to teach this? Why are you taking away what? I really hope that becomes a driving force for us to push back, because we need to push back. We have so much power, but we're so much more powerful collectively. And until we all tap into that collective power, we're going to continue to see these things go forward. And guess what? It's by a minority group of people who are in power. We cannot allow them to continue to have this minority rule over the majority when we know what is right and just.
Absolutely. Shalinda, I think you foresee in the future when you said, I can see the Black teachers walking away from the job of teaching and educating. Black teachers are crucial to Black children. Black teachers are crucial to education, to the educational system. Black women in particular are one of the highest groups of educators in this country. Black teachers are going to walk out. If Black teachers don't resist, if Black teachers don't rebel, then guess what's going to happen? Our children are going to be sentenced to lies and omissions. But once Black teachers say enough is enough and y'all decide to walk away from the job and say, look, I'm done with this shit. I'm done. I'm done. I'm not teaching Black children about being patriotic to a country that don't even want to acknowledge their existence. I'm done. Right. When Black teachers walk away, the system is going to fall. Mark my words. That's a whole different revolution just by the simple walking away from the industry. Y'all can still teach, but y'all can teach in the community centers. Y'all can teach at home. Y'all can teach in other spaces, but you don't have to teach in a system that don't want to acknowledge your existence, your value, your worth. It's like walking away from a man or walking away from a partner that don't love you.
Yeah.
At some point, we got to stop being battered victims, man.
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to use that analogy lightly. I'm just saying it's an abusive relationship to expect teachers to not do their jobs before political benefit. That is absolutely insane. And then you're going to pay teachers to not do their job.
That alone tells me that they do not comprehend what it means to be a teacher. It truly is a calling. And you do have some teachers that have no business being teachers. Like you have some people who have no business being nurses. Like teaching is a calling. I hope at least Farajii, after this, pandemic, when schools were shut down and kids were at home for a while, I hope no parent ever questions again why teachers get summers off. We have the summer off for a reason. It takes a lot of time. I know that I've spent money out of my pocket, to make sure my kids were provided for when I couldn't get it from the administration, because I love the kids and they shouldn't have to suffer on behalf of that. So we have to remember the kids are our first priority. And we as parents, and I'm speaking against specifically to Black people, our Black community, we have to make sure we're educating our children and fill in those gaps. To Nicole's point, like Mansa Musa, Jimmy Lee Jackson, I don't think for a lot of kids, they're even learning that in school in depth right now. So they're getting ready to erase it all together. And we have to make sure, okay, you're not learning it in the classroom, but guess what? You're going to learn it at this kitchen table. We're going to talk about it after school next Friday night with friends and family at the table. Whatever we got to make it happen, we got to do it.
Absolutely. Folks, look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation about the cultural, the efforts to fight against history. I'm going to go into another part of this situation, folks, dealing with the Black National Anthem and how there is a resistance to this, and how one school district is going as far as to requiring permission slips for students to learn. And I'm talking about Black students to learn the Black National Anthem. Folks, y'all hear me? The war is on culturally in our classrooms. We're going to have that conversation up next here on The Culture as I bring in my brother Rashad in and keep Corinna on. We're going to have a lot to talk about. Stay with us. It's all happening on The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show, The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Now, before we get further along into these conversations, we got a very big announcement to make about the direction of The Culture and the Black Star Network. Now, folks, as you have been already doing, you can find us in a lot of different places. But now one of the big places that we are very, very happy to announce is that you can find The Culture and all of the dynamic programming of the Black Star Network on Amazon News. That's right, folks. You can find us on the Amazon Fire TV. That's right. We're now streaming live 24/7, 365 days. Try Alexa, play news from Black Star Network. And you will find us, folks. We cannot be more excited about this. You'll need a Fire Stick, which is, of course, an Amazon's version of Roku or Apple TV. I have a Fire Stick, and I know many of you probably already have a Fire Stick. So when you log on, go on to Amazon News and search for Black Star Network. Folks, I'm telling you, I've done it the other day. We're right there, and it rolls. It is showing all of the dynamic programming that we have here on the network. We're taking the streaming to a whole different level. This is a very, very big thing for this digital platform that we are able to now stream on such a major platform like Amazon News and to get all of your news and information. So again, make sure that you do your part. Check out us on Amazon News through the Amazon Fire TV stick. And more importantly, let your friends and family know that we are streaming right there live 24/7. If you look at the live stream as we're doing it, they have certain time blocks for our shows to be live, to be played live. So if you can definitely check out the schedule and so much more. Very, very exciting. Taking the conversations that we've been having about everything from news to education to politics to our culture to the next level. And folks, we are just grateful for the partnership with Amazon, being able to have a distribution platform like this. So make sure you let people know. Invest in getting an Amazon Fire TV stick, and more importantly, stay tuned to the Black Star Network and the culture on Amazon. All right, folks, there it is. Big announcement there. Let's continue our conversation as we look at what is going on, as there is an ongoing fight against history coming from states from across the country. We talked about Florida. We talked about the state of Missouri. Let's also talk about that it's just not happening in the classroom, folks, that this fight continues to happen in other places. Now, back to Florida, where my sister Corinna is, and I'm going to bring in my brother Rashad, who hails from Baltimore. But let's look at what is going on in Florida. We talked to you, we shared with you the other day that in Florida, they're pushing back against CRT. Now, it has now been reported, they're not just pushing back against CRT and questioning whether that's relevant or whether that's valuable. They are even going as far as to requiring students to get a permission slip signed for them to learn the Black National Anthem. I can't make this stuff up, man. I cannot make this stuff up. This is happening in Florida. And I want to bring Corinna and Rashad into the frame as we have this conversation. And folks will certainly get to you as well to get your take on it. My brother, Rashad. Rashad, good afternoon. How you feeling, bro?
Hey, peace, brother. Happy early Friday. Happy holidays, as we say. Peace, sis. How are you? Always for the culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So here's what's happening in Florida around this idea of permission slips needed for to learn about the Black National Anthem. This has been reported by the group. Take a look at this, folks. That in Marion County schools, the spokesperson said that students in grade 3 through 5 will be participating in the learning the song to recite in a performance for Black History Month, says the report. But the activity was labeled as an extracurricular activity, allowing students to, quote, participating in presenting historical facts regarding African Americans and or singing the Black National Anthem. Now, according to the school board members, Eric Cummings, the lyrics, "We have come treading our path through the slaughtered," may have left some parents to, and I want to make sure we get this all in. Let's go to the next slide on that one, Keenan, if you can. We don't have that one. All right. May have left some parents, make sure here, presenting historical facts regarding African Americans or singing the anthem. Now, they have this, the permission slip was meant to honor the wish of critical race Karens, allowing them to have a say in what they have learned, because in that report, they said that the some parents, more than likely anti-CRT ones, were uneasy about this idea of learning about the Black National Anthem. So that permission slip was meant to honor the wish of critical race Karens, allowing them to have a say in what their kids learn. I want to get your take on this, both Corinna and Rashad, that now this is a part of a Black History program, and as a result of that, being a part of a Black History program, that the students may have to get permission just to learn something as simple and something that many of us probably took for granted, the Black National Anthem. a song that has been dedicated to the struggle of Black people in this country. And now this is up on the chopping block. Rashad, what's your take on this, bro?
Boy, if it ain't one consistent thing, it is America itself. The consistencies in America it's not even surprising. But I'm gonna stay by this. It's the caucasity. Shows its here again, brother. It's appalling, but in the article it alludes to this. Like they put these permission slips in place to please the anti-CRT Karens, and it did exactly what it did. You use a particular group or demographic to fight against the legislation that you didn't want to pass, or policy or practice that you didn't want to implement in the first place. But the even more frustrating part is the ideal of why we can't have one without the other, right? And that comes back to us debunking the reality of we're not in an equity-based society. We're still looking for equality, right? Why can we not have critical race theory without having to learn about patriotism when patriotism is already a part of the normal scope and behavior of this country? Why does one have to negate the other? So in that sense, why we need to have critical race theory, we need to have anti-racism studies, we need to learn about Black Afrocentricity and understanding the diaspora without having to learn about all the other histories that we have, because that's the equitable-based lens. But trying to say we need one in connection to the other is still equality and not equity in itself. I think it's all to just wrap up. I think we just getting caught up in this new world of jargons and buzzwords to the point that it doesn't please nobody, but it's only for face value.
And here's the other part of that. And to Rashad's point, I mean, this is America, Corinna. Some parents were upset by the fact that something like this relating to Black history required a permission slip, where other points of history, of American history, of learning about different, cultures and other cultural pieces of American history, that didn't need any permission slips. So now some Black parents are pushing back and say, like, damn, bro, my learning just a small song requires a permission slip, but you can talk about everybody else's pain and struggle, and it doesn't need anything.
Yeah, I'm glad they're pushing back.
Here's my question for you, Corinna. When are Black folks moving out of Florida?
Oh my goodness.
When are y'all moving out of Florida?
I don't know, Farajii. It's bittersweet for me because
y'all need to come to California if you want sunshine or something, man.
Yeah, and I just relocated back to South Florida. I'm born and raised here, but I lived in New York for about 7 years. So that was a bittersweet move. It's home, but it's just like, damn, like what we have to deal with, and everything is just Florida, right now, popular for all of the wrong reasons. But yeah, we can't make this up. It's unfortunate that now you need a permission slip to learn a song. And it just made me think about my upbringing. To a quick point, I'm one of those September babies that was born in the middle of the month, and I didn't make the cutoff date for September 1st. So for the first 2 years of my education, kindergarten and first grade, I actually went to an all Black private school. And I'm in my late 30s now, and to tell you like how intricate that private school was to my life as a 5 and 6 year old, I remember every single detail. I remember learning Lift Every Voice and Sing in that school, and how proud we were to learn about Black history. I wanted to share this book today real quick. I've had this since I was probably like 6. Great Negroes Past and Present. We used to have like a book fair at that school. It was called Rainbow Academy, and it looks a little tattered and torn, but I still have it. And it's just to tell you that was such a significant part of my education. And I can't remember learning about Shaka Zulu and Ida B. Wells and all of these great people in any other part of my education when, after my mom had to challenge and write the school board and was like, you're not holding my child back for a couple of weeks now, like let her go to 2nd grade. But I wasn't learning it there. And I'm trying to remember, did I learn Lift Every Voice and Sing again when I was in those regular schools and not in my Black private school anymore? I can't really recall. And now that we need a permission slip, but we don't need a permission slip to learn My Country 'Tis of Thee or America the Beautiful or any of that. So I'm glad that parents are pushing back, as they should, because it does bring into question, well, we can't learn, we can't take AP, African American Studies, but AP European history is still a thing. We can learn about a French monarchy that died out, like Louis the Great, or King Louis, or I think is it Anne Marie? I can't remember her name. They have the shows and stuff on Netflix about it, but they learn about that. But those Black kids aren't learning about their kings and queens who look like them. If we're going to be learning other cultures, why aren't we just as entitled to learn about our own? Why do we need a permission slip for a song? And you know what else? One more thing it made me think about. I think maybe about a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, correct me on this if I'm wrong, I remember the NFL announcing that they were going to start playing Lift Every Voice and Sing, at the opening of the game, in sync with the Star Spangled Banner. So I wonder if some of these same parents who might have pushed back about their child learning our Black National Anthem have pushed back for their precious NFL when they decided that they were going to play it on the field. I just wonder how all those pieces tie in together. Like, do you just pick and choose when you feel a certain way about a certain thing, just for show, just for the political theater? But yeah, it's really getting out of hand. And I hope those parents collectively challenge, like Roland always talks about, going to these school boards officials. We saw it last week how Roland literally shut it down in Texas. As a collective to show like we're not going to stand for this. So I really hope those parents, this is the time to gather in those PTA meetings, or even if it's just at a parent's house, and say, what are we going to do about this? We need to push back and not just sign the slip and say, yeah, it's okay for my baby to learn. No, we need to challenge them and question them. Why do we need permission for this? But we don't need permission. It's just a given that we learn your European history, Western civilization, and whatnot. We have just as much entitlement, more than anybody else almost. And I know that's a fine line, but I'm just gonna say it, Farajii. Like it's just the truth.
It's racism at its finest, right? It's racism at its finest. There was one parent that they pointed out in this story. Her daughter name was Amanda, who's in the 3rd grade. Her daughter questioned why she did not receive a permission slip for her daughter. A woman. Amanda did not receive a permission slip for learning about the Holocaust, but she had to get one to just learn the song, the Black National Anthem. And so Amanda, the parent, excuse me, not the daughter, Amanda's the parent. Amanda had to ask the school, like, why are you not giving permission slips for these other elements of our history? If it's all history, it should all be treated fairly. But again, this is what we needed. I'm telling y'all, folks, this is, and Rashad, you understand this, bro. This is what we needed. We need to wake up to the reality of the times. We need to wake up to the reality of the type of mindset that certain people have. And this is not just white people. I mean, this could be exemplified by Black people as well, right? Because some Black people want to go along to get along. But we need to wake up because we've gotten so comfortable. We've gotten so comfortable in these cities and states across the country, Rashad. We got 30 seconds, but they are showing us that the struggle that our grandparents and our great-grandparents and our ancestors fought, that struggle has not ended, folks. That struggle has not ended. And for our generation, like Amanda said about her parents, she's about her daughter, she said, my daughter, there was nothing offensive about what's being said in the Black National Anthem. She said, I'm more offended by what I see on YouTube and TikTok than I am about my daughter learning the Black National Anthem. And that's the truth. But we need to wake up. We need to wake up. Look, Rashad, I want to get your take on that when we come forward. Look, we got to take a quick pause. Let's continue the conversation as we talk about permission slips needed for the Black National Anthem in the state of Florida and so much more. We got a lot to talk about, so stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all. All momentum we have now We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape. With me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back. We have been talking about the latest moves happening in Florida, where there's this fight against history as some Florida school officials have decided that students need to have a permission slip signed in order to learn Black National Anthem, which has received mixed reviews and reactions from both Black and white parents. Now, this is a way, according to Marion County school officials, for them to kind of protect themselves against those parents who are resisting the idea of critical race theory. And so this is their measure of making sure that parents are know what's being taught in their child's school. And this is bullshit. That's what it is. There's a bunch of BS, folks, because now we're seeing that our history is truly under attack. And I've been talking to my culture crew. We got Corinna, we got Rashad, and certainly I got you as we have this conversation. Rashad, I want to get back to you, bro, talking to us about just the wide-ranging implications. And I want to highlight something that our culture crew has been, our online culture crew has been talking about, because as they're listening to the story, of course, people are going to be upset. This is a story that's going to piss you off, but it's got to piss us off to action. It can't just keep us in a place where we're just angry, because I know it's easy for Black folks to get angry about what happens in this country, but it's harder for us to get angry and then go into work to change that, to go into action mode. So talk to us about that side of the conversation and that side of the fights, Rashad.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was about to go, right? It's like, one, I'm always the type to like acknowledge the growth in the, the progression. One, we got to acknowledge the fact of the strenuous fight it took to get critical race theory in some of these educational districts, right? In these states in itself. And now that they have become a part of the projected practices, instructions, and implementation, we as a people, we as the parents, guardians, the educators, the partners, those that are part of the school community now have to take up the baton of the second leg of the fight. And that is making sure that they're implemented, it is done with fluidity and fidelity. It is done in a manner that is best centered, right? When they pushed these legislations, and of course they weren't already in favor, it was very oppositional to even get critical race theory to be considered. That was the first fight. But now that they were projected to go in there, now they're coming back with this. It's like the civil rights movement again. You give Negroes the right to vote. Now I'm going to ask you to count how many jelly beans is in a jar. right? We're going to always find a barrier to stop you, to make sure that the masses doesn't normalize the actions that will progress you as society. So now it's back on us as accountability partners to our own community to say, hey, we have to do our part. Like our sister said, we got to show up at these PCAB meetings. We got to start to run for board positions. We got to start to become these educators and these instructors. We have to take the Black men from not just being hall monitors to being instructors, not just being coaches, but being life coaches in themselves. This is our part to do the work so that our young people can see it, because they've done their part. They've done their part. Those Karens done their part. They made sure that it is now accompanied by a permission slip. What are we going to do to make sure that now, if it's either remove the permission slip or you put all the extracurricular studies to different demographic and culture should be attached to that as well. But the issue of the whole matter is because critical race theory changes the perspective of accountability, where the Black person is not seen or subjugated to less than. We're not seen as the victim, but we're seen as those that have been exploited, those that have been dehumanized. And the reality is, it is still heartening for white America to swallow the harsh pill of how they have imposed such on us, right? And it takes that part, because we got to be mindful when we look at the demographics and the makeup of our elected officials across all states. They're older, majority are white, and they're very conservative in manner, if not in public, and most certainly they are in privacy, right? These folks lived during that time, right? That's so true. You think about the Jerry Jones effect. Jerry Jones was there. We caught him on 4K camera, right, in 2022. Right. So what would it be for him to take, I got to admit my wrong, and I got to now put it in place. And now the same people that I once hate, I got to give them a floodgate open for them to reclaim their throne. Man, that's going against their whole level of fighting for existence.
Hey, bro, you're right on point. You are right on point. Now, look, check this out. I love what Smooth Approach said. You said a smooth approach is a war on history and knowledge of self.
Mm-hmm.
See, a lot of us probably didn't become conscious until we were in our teenage years. Some of us didn't get conscious until we got into our college years. We started listening to like Chuck D and Public Enemy. We started listening to KRS-One. We started listening to Rakim, Eric B. and Rakim. We started listening to De La Soul or some music that's.
I'm gonna stop leaving out my man Mos Def. Mos Def. I've been listening to folks talk about these pioneers.
I mean, look, by the time Mos Def dropped in the late 90s, we were probably all just already activated.
All right, got you. That's me coming from my side of the spectrum.
Right. But yeah, you're right. Like there are a bunch of artists that use the culture to as weapons, because if they're going to use the history and weaponize history against us, well, we know this is what I'm thinking about, Corinna. If they're using laws to weaponize the laws against us, and that's always been the part of the playbook, Black folks are shifting. We are on the forefront of culture in this country. I don't care what no one says. If you look at hip hop, if you look at entertainment, if you look at sports, if you look at movies, we are on the forefront of the culture. So why not weaponize our culture? As they weaponize the policies, we can weaponize the culture, because the policies are one thing, but the culture is truly the influential element that will drive people. Because I'm looking at what my sister Ming Lee Natasha Sir said. She said, this is what the Beyoncés and Megans and Cardis should be talking about on their platform. Could you imagine if Beyonce, look, I follow Cardi. Could you imagine Cardi be like, y'all know what's wrong? What's going crazy? You can't even learn the Black National Anthem in Florida without a permission slip. This is absolutely like insane. And do you know, just by her putting a post out like that would shift the whole conversation.
Ming Lee, I agree with you, sis, but you know what? It just made me think about something Dr. Carr said in class. I think this was around maybe like October 2021. And he says something along the line, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, entertainers as leaders can only make sense when they are able to think independent of their entertainment, as Paul Robeson, who was an exemplar to what that looked like. The thing is with our artists, I mean, I think some of them need a class on how to leverage their platform accordingly. Sure. And then secondly, are they willing to make the sacrifices? Yep. You see, I mean, they get on and they post things, but are they willing to make the sacrifices? You know, like the great Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte, you know, they were entertainers, but they understood and they helped to push the movement forward behind the scenes, right? Where they're down south trying to outrun, you know, racist police in a sundown town to get bail money for protesters, right? Like they were helping to fuel the movement, like they understood their role. So it's one thing for them to say it, but then if they're forced to make a choice, are they willing to make the sacrifice? And I feel like that's a whole nother conversation.
And look, I'm so happy, Corinna, you brought that up, because that's when, and this is for us as supporter of these artists. Black artists in particular don't make those type of stands because I think they're afraid that they're not going to be supported by Black people, right? Like if Beyonce, and look, maybe we're asking too much, but I'm just saying a well-known artist were to take a stand like that, we got to assure the artist, like, look, you got enough money. We understand that this is a money game, but at the same time, we will support you if you support us. Now, look, trust and believe. I mean, I've been around a lot of different celebrities. Rashad, you've been around celebrities. Corinne, I'm sure you've been around some celebrities. I'm not putting so much into their platforms for them to take a stand before we make a move. I'm just using that point, making that point that it helps to, it takes the struggle to another level. If we understood the power of the resources and the power of the things that we control, we're not always in these state conversations, these state political conversations, but we're on the street. We can use grassroots, grassroots efforts. We're in these spaces where white children are being influenced by Black thought. And one of the great fears that we need to mention in the course of this conversation, while some parents are pushing back on this idea of the white children learning about Black history, is because they believe that white children will not continue the mindset that they grew up under. And as a result of that, white children might start asking questions. Well, why do we treat Black people like this?
We saw a lot of that on social media in like 2020, right? Those white kids were pushing back against their parents.
White children starting to have questions, like go to the. And I remember we had two dynamic women on the show. One of them was white, one of them was Black. They wrote a book about racism, and I remember this one, our white guest making a point. She's like, when I go to Thanksgiving dinner this year, I plan to bring up race issues, and I plan to challenge all of my white family members. And she said, you know what, Farajii? White people across this country are having these very hard, difficult conversations now more than ever. And I was blown away. I was like, damn, y'all having this conversation at Thanksgiving? She's like, yes.
And that's the crux. That's the crux of the issue. That is the genesis of what we're talking about. While we shouldn't get distracted by why are now entertainers not our advocates and our politicians? One, because that's not their aspirational goal. And to put them on that is probably disheartening for them because they wasn't brought up to be that. And somebody else has that God-given talent that should be supported. That's the reality. But the crux of the matter is this. We are seeing generations that are more progressive, that are merging, that is more understanding of the global humanities, that now it is now starting to have this direct trickle effect back into the kitchen table and talking to grandpa or talking to grandma and asking them, what side of justice were you on? And no one wants to look at their sweet baby grandbaby and have to tell them, you know what, I was outside of a lynch party. I wore the robe. Unless that is a part and they're still doing that. But the reality is there's a lot more in 2023 that everyone wants to give that Martin Luther King effect. I was marching with Martin. No, you aren't. There was only 36% approval rate. Where's the 60% that hated him?
Woo!
world. They're still judges, they're still directors, they're still a part of private foundations, they're still a part of something. And when these elected officials go back in their chambers, outside of having to take the accountability that they got to have across the rooms during Thanksgiving, they get into their social clubs with their buddies and say, we got them. We'll put this in place.
Right.
And my safe haven is still next to the pen. But we got to make sure that we're the ones that hold the pen just as much as they are holding it. So the accountability goes back into us, that it's not just representation, it has to be demonstration.
And look, Turner family, you checked in. I think you bring up an excellent point before we take our next pause. But Turner family, you said, come on, people. Having a conversation is not the same thing as surrendering power. No, it's not. You're absolutely right. But I think, Corinna and Rashad, that for white people, surrendering power is a much different task than us trying to attain power. How do you surrender power? You got to start it with a conversation. Again, going through the children. Look, if you look at the movement of Black folks and the movement for liberation in this country, the movement for liberation always started with the babies. It never started with the adults.
Yeah.
That's why Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, every major Black leader had always advocated for an educational system to teach the babies to think differently than their parents were taught, right? Because that's where you start. You can't talk about no revolution unless you're talking about first teaching and training your babies to think a certain way. So if you're talking about, and this is why CRT, this is why this whole conversation about permission slips in the schools is so critical, because that's the babies. That's where you start. If you drop a seed in their heads, with these white children's heads, that tell them that Black people are inferior, Black people are valuable, Black people are worthwhile, Black people got power, that disrupts them. Look, this is a different game we got to play. It's not about just pulling down some statues, changing some signs, putting up new policy. No. You talking about here. That's the and that's the revolution I'm saying we going to. Talking about here in the head. Because these parents, and here's the thing, and I'm truly an advocate of, and I'm a true believer of this. I really believe that this country is on the precipice of a great disruption, whether you call it a civil war, whether you call it whatever, but this country, we're right at the cliff of a great disruption because we want to stay in a state of denial and lies and omissions. And as a result of that, that's going to be the death knell to democracy, the death knell to how we see society, because we just want to hold on to lies. Either we accept the truth and move forward, or we continue to embrace the lie and essentially will fall and die. That's how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, we can't embrace the lie. We can't embrace the lie. We have to be forward thinking.
Look, the crazy, Corinna, guess what? In the states like Florida, we've seen in Missouri, Texas, all of these states that are holding on to the old way, old thinking, white supremacist thinking. I'm telling you, and I know we were kind of joking, but Black folks need to figure out, like, yo, y'all can move to some of these states if you want to, because they got low housing and better job opportunities. But the reality,
Florida is the most expensive state in the country right now. So, yeah, aside from all the other mess we got going on, we are very expensive. This is not the place to retire anymore. Florida.
It's I'm telling you. And my man Keenan said it's a trap. You bring you in. They talking about, oh, you can get all of this acres of land. Oh, you can get all these jobs. And then next thing you know, you put your children in these schools and these schools become like killing fields, just completely remove the identity, any culture of your child. I mean, seriously, this is war. I'm going back to what Smooth Operator said. This is war. And we can't think in peacetime during a time of war. Look, we got to take a quick pause. I know we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we'll have one more conversation about this. And then we're expected to check in with the mayor of Broadview, Illinois, in a few moments. So stay with us. More conversation right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, we have been talking about permission slips needed to learn the Black National Anthem in the state of Florida and Marion County. And I've been talking to Brother Rashad, my sister Corinna Denise, and of course, we're having these conversations with you. Rashad, you're responding to a comment that was made by my brother, Real Brooklyn. Can you speak up? Or can you share what was your thought? Because I know Real Brooklyn he's been vocal in this conversation.
Yeah, I'm familiar with my brother. I've been watching. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you for being part of the culture in the village. But as always, man, we gotta sharpen each other, hold each other accountable, especially when we putting things out there. My good brother said, you know who political leaders reach out to in order to communicate with young people is rappers and drug dealers. That's who. Look and tell me, how is that normal? We have issues. And I can't speak for this, brother. I can only respond to how it resonated with me. One, I think you do have some valid points, right? That this should not be normalized, that others outside of our community look for them to be our cavalry. They look for them to be our spokespersons or our messengers. But in truth and reality, brother, we all know that you never once brought a ticket to a rapper to give you an oratorical speech. You brought a ticket to go and see them perform. You never went and brought a ticket to see a rapper give a speech at a church or in a community center. Yeah, they shown up and yeah, they might have spoke to their lived experience, but are they inspiring you for that? No, that's at Revolt TV Summit and during the Congressional Black Caucus weekend. Outside of that, we don't see them being tapped onto. But I take it to a space of us calling this particular comment out is because we have these avid community leaders, change agents, and thought leaders that are working tirelessly, underfunded, unrecognized, and are working to still galvanize our people. And we cannot continue to suppress them by saying that our own people, who is our messengers, are our entertainers. If the society continuously put us in the box, us as a people can't continue to box ourselves in. Right. When it came down to us galvanizing 2,500 young people to work on HBCU equity cases, it was not an entertainer. It was not a local rapper from Baltimore. It was those like Farajii. It was those like myself and our peers in Baltimore that got on the tables and yelled to the top of our lungs, telling them and informing them and encouraging them to get on the bus. I sit right now in an incubator space where we just brought 25 young people to talk to our city council, our board members, our commissioners about the violence that are happening in Baltimore City. I didn't have to call a local Baltimore rapper to get these young people. We called the young people directly and we put it out there in the most attractable and approachable manner to say, hey, this is a space to hear your voice. We can't continue to undermine the leaders who want the baton, who wear their crown proudly, who are there to advocate and put their life on the line and not give them the same platform, but continuously perpetuate what society wants us to perpetuate, that say a Cardi B, a Megan, and a Beyonce got to be my spokesperson. No, right. No, brother, because I haven't slept in the last 48 hours. And I know plenty of other people that ain't sleep in the last 72. And I know I can get the message out much more effective in a much more quicker catchment area than any Baltimore rapper, because they ain't going to say it in the right manner anyway. And they're probably going to push us back 2 hands versus than us moving up 1 step. I just had to say that out of love, Real Brooklyn.
That's still good because my guy, Real Brooklyn. I mean, he don't mind having the tough conversations, bro. He always brings up great points. So I'm not even tripping about that.
And he's from Brooklyn, if I'm assuming. So Brooklyn probably the most straightforward.
Shit, man, he get on this platform. And Real Brooklyn, I gotta bring you on, brother, because I want to hear you face to face, brother. I want to hear you face to face, man. I do, because Real Brooklyn always has something to say, but I think it comes out of a passion of bringing up points, of having these discussions, right? And this is what we do in this space. Like you said, Rashad, steel sharp and steel. We got to question each other, because nowadays we don't question, we don't even have the space to question each other, right? So when one person says something that you may not agree with, that's fine. Question them. If I say something that y'all don't agree with, that's cool. Question me. That's fine. That's what it is. But it's creating the space and being in community with one another to say, you know what, this is what it is. But I know one thing for sure. We all tired of this madness.
Yeah.
We all tired of this pushback against blackness, whether you're taught in the schools or in the communities, in the music. Like, we all grew up in hip hop. I understand that there are destructive elements of hip hop. Now, if that means that we toss the whole genre away, no, not absolutely, not at all. Because just as much as there are some destructive elements, there have been some life-saving elements of hip hop as well.
And Farajii, to your point, Farajii, we have to learn how to challenge each other without being disagreeable, right? Because it's when you have these conversations and this dialect, we learn from each other. We grow. We're enlightened. We learn something new. We learn something different. We can kind of piece things together and put it into context. And it also made me think about, how powerful would we be if we truly knew all of our history? That is why they want to take it away. That's why they want to take it away. It's about remembering. Like, I always think of it this way. There's so much to unlearn and so much more to remember. And that's one of the reasons why they want to take it away, because once we all collectively remember who we were when we ruled before the enslavement, it makes it seem, when we see these documentaries and stuff, like that is the beginning of our existence, which is definitely a lie. We're going to tap into that power and things are definitely going to shift. And that's why they are working overtime to make sure that we don't have this in the history books, that we're not teaching this in schools, right? They want to take it all away because they know that once we have that knowledge collectively, we're going to change things effectively immediately.
Right.
So I think, I hope that'll be the driving force. Like, again, I think now is the time to arm ourselves with knowledge, now more than ever before. We can't miss the moment to do that. It's so important that we don't miss the moment, because, what's going to happen when they actually push these votes through, because they have the numbers right now to do these things, right? I know we're talking about it, but it's something that's actually going to come to pass. But we have the power to change that and put a stop. And we have to decide, are we going to tolerate this? Yeah. Are we going to tolerate where they are going to actually send your child home with a permission slip to learn, a song that's significant to us as a people? No, we're not going to tolerate it. So I'm just like, what the hell are we going to do about it? What are we preparing to do?
And Corinna, I appreciate you putting that question out there. And we have a few moments left. Our very special guest, Mayor Katrina Thompson, who is the mayor of the city of Broadview, Illinois, has just been able to join us. We got a couple of moments with the mayor, but we do want to certainly invite the mayor to come back and be a part of the conversation. But Mayor Thompson, we're having this very, very important conversation about what we're seeing in Florida, Missouri, talking about CRT, permission slips to be black. You just came away, you just finished up a meeting at the White House to talk to the Biden-Harris administration about a number of issues. Your city of Broadview, Illinois, a lot of small towns and smaller cities in this country that are on the front lines to make big changes. So first and foremost, Madam Mayor, thank you for being on the show for a few moments. And again, I'm serious. We would certainly love to bring you back for a much longer conversation. But what was the conversation at the White House for you? What was the big issue affecting Black people that you walked away with, that you felt like it needed to be said or it needed to be discussed?
So in all true transparency, first of all, my apologies for being on this call late, and I wish I was on much sooner. And I'm happy to come back to have the conversation as it relates to Blacks, because I love my people and I'm unapologetically about that. So, but the conversation was toward more the infrastructure bill, the climate change, and those conversations, and assault weapons for some of the mayors that's having some mass shootings in their communities. But I'm happy to talk about the issues that impact Black America, and a lot of times we don't talk about. And so for me, it's just real simple. You know, when we talk about educating our kids and putting the resources back into our communities, those are the things that I lobby and I advocate for our community, not just for the village of Broadview, but just for the community that I live in, the community that I serve, and all of the mayors that I represent. So I am currently the president of our West Central Municipal Conference, and that's about 600,000 constituents. I have a small town of 8,000 residents, but during daytime hours, I may get up to 35,000 because I have a huge manufacturing base. But we intentionally do the work to make sure that our voices is heard. And listening to the conversation as we talked about you all was talking about the national anthem, the Black National Anthem, and to put permission slips in place, I think that's just the most ridiculous thing. It's like stripping us of who we are. And a lot of times we don't even know who we are. And we need to get back to the roots of having that conversation of who we are as a people, as a race, as a culture. And they want to take that away from us, but we have to stand strong and continue to be present in it. And you all talked about this, and I was having conversation with some of my colleagues that don't look like me last night, and I told them I don't like to be called people of color because you segregating us indirectly. You know, I feel more comfortable if you said non-white. And don't put me in a box to say that I'm inclusive with Asians, Pakistanians, Indian, Hispanics, Blacks, because you segregating us and you don't even think that you're doing it. We were the ones that came over here when we talk about 1619. It was our people that were slaves that came over to America and built this country. And now you want to put me back in the box when in the 60s and 50s, my grandparents grew up in the South. They couldn't even drink from a white water fountain. It was called color. And now today we're using the same language as colored. In 1988, Jesse Jackson Sr., he was the one who changed it to African Americans. So we had 5 name changes. It's been called, we were slaves, colored, Black, African American,
Negro.
We are Negro. And so we have to go back to the history of who we are as a race, as a culture, and how we identify.
Let me ask you this real quick, Madam Mayor. In the state of Illinois, is Illinois another possible state that may put some restrictions on Black students and white students learning about Black history?
So I know legislation had passed where they had implemented African American studies in our public school systems, and I know it had been some pushback on that. But what I think was so profound is that when we talked about the history of cultures, they were more prevalent to put Asian history into play. And that was just like, okay, now let's be for real. We together have to stand on things that matter to us. And we don't bring the root cause of a lot of things. See, back when I grew up in Inglewood, California, and I moved to Illinois. And so I've been very blessed and fortunate to have a rich history of African American studies that I was taught at home. So I didn't learn it in the public school systems. I learned it from my grandparents and my parents. And so our kids don't have that legacy of history knowledge from a base of our ancestors. And when we don't have that and we've taken that out of they don't teach it in school. So where else can a kid learn? Is at home. And a lot of our homes are chaotic, dysfunctional, and we have all of these elements that plague our communities, but we're not talking about the root cause of bringing family together and how we unify and unite together. So we have a lot of different issues that we have to, get on top of, but we have to stick together to address the issues. And we can't be wishy-washy and, riding the fence. We have to, stand strong. And this is what we are. This is who we are. This is what we're going to do.
Madam Mayor, we got a couple of moments left, but I'm wondering what's the best course of action that we as Black folks in this country, you got your constituents, but even talking to other mayors, what's the best course of action that we could take to push back against some of what we're seeing coming from the states around the country, to resist the policies or to resist the cultural implications of against our blackness. What can we do at this point from your vantage point?
So from my lenses of perception, when we talk about elected officials, that's Black elected officials, you can't have double talk.
Okay, come on, madam. Yeah.
You can't have double talk. You either with us or you're not, but you can't have a conversation when we're together. And then when we're not together, it's a whole different conversation. Exactly. So that's our biggest issue is when we get these Black elected officials, we send you to get these positions to advocate for the things that we just want to be treated fairly. But then you get the seat and you do something totally different. And that's problematic for me. So it's going to be hard for us to band together when our elected officials are double talking.
I got to stop it right there because I want people to marinate over that over the weekend. Madam Mayor, I got to bring you back.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I know our time has been limited, but you're doing the great work of making sure that cities like Broadview, Illinois, and other elected officials are making sure y'all doing the work to make sure that the constituents are taken care of. But we truly, truly appreciate your time that you were able to spend with us. But I love that point. We have to stop the double talk. And I feel like 2023 is going to be the year where we start G-checking some folks, some Black elected officials. They talk all that blackness when they're around us and we get on this platform. But when they're around their white counterparts, it's a whole different conversation. And in 2023, that's not going to ride with us anymore. I'm telling you, it's not going to ride. Too much is at stake, Madam Mayor. Too much is at stake for us.
So I agree. I appreciate the time. I hate that it was short, but I'm looking forward to coming back to the show.
Yes, ma'am.
And having a conversation with you all. I'm just not afraid to lose the seat for what's right. I stand for what's right. Period.
There it is.
Yes,
there it is. There it is. Madam Mayor Katrina Thompson, representing the great city of Broadview, Illinois. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor, for your time.
It's my pleasure. Take care.
Yes, ma'am. Rashad, Katrina, Corinna, I appreciate y'all both for being a part of the conversation. Corinna, I love having you on the Fridays because you always get the conversation going. So, I appreciate you, Rashad, my brother. You are continuing to do the great work. Rashad, we're going to have to pick your brain because Westmore is in office. So we know next week or the next time we reconnect, we're going to have to get your insight and your analysis about what you see for the great state of Maryland and the city of Baltimore moving forward. I know it's a lot of different conversations happening there, but I appreciate y'all both. So thank y'all for checking in and being a part of the culture today.
Thanks.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I appreciate my online culture crew. Y'all were fantastic, on fire as always. So thank y'all so much for tuning in. Folks, as we announced earlier today, the Black Star, you can find the culture, the Black Star Network on Amazon News. Make sure y'all check us out on the Amazon Fire TV. Just ask Alexa, say, Alexa, play news from Black Star Network. And folks, we are streaming there live now for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And we have this streaming platform that we want you to take advantage of. And this is why we ask you to continue to support us at Black Star Network. You can definitely check us out on Amazon News and also check us out on our website at blackstarnetwork.com and continue to support us because we are growing, we're expanding, and we're having the conversations that are relevant to you. So make sure you support the Black Star Network at blackstarnetwork.com. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network on IG and Twitter. And also follow me at The Real Farajii on IG, Farajii on Twitter, as we continue to have the conversation and build the community of the online culture crew. Big shout out to my team, Keenan and Joel, in my control room, and I thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered at 6 p.m., streaming live on Black Star Network and, of course, on Amazon News. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk on Monday for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Peace.